and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Alison J, The Journey to Here. If you're new to the channel, I'm Alison J. Please remember to subscribe, like our videos, and share. Also, don't forget to check the notification bell so that you don't miss another video. Today, I'll be speaking to LaBarron Burwell. LaBarron is a globally renowned wellness expert and catalyst for personal and professional transformation. Originally from Oxford, North Carolina, he is now based in the Washington, D.C. area and has been for the past decade. LaBarron has dedicated his life to empowering individuals and organizations with the tools and insights that they need to thrive. With a rich tapestry of experiences, he has served as a wellness consultant at NASA, collaborating with leading scientists and engineers to enhance the employee well-being. He has also worked with brands such as Lululemon. LaBarron has an unwavering passion, wealth of knowledge, experience, and is respected in the field of wellness, as well as the author of the Mental Hygiene Workbook. LaBarron, thank you so much for joining us here, and welcome to Conversations with Alison J, The Journey to Here.
Hello.
Hello, how are you? I reached out to you to ask you about mental hygiene because many of us have heard of mental health. It seems to be, fortunately, a bit of a buzz at the moment, just removing the stigma from mental health and mental wellness. But you refer to it as mental hygiene. I'm not sure we've possibly heard of it put in that way before. So tell us a bit about yourself and how did you get involved in this work and why mental hygiene?
Well, first I want to say thank you, Allison, for having me and, just, taking notice of the things that I was doing on social and reaching out. I know it takes a lot being in sales and being an entrepreneur. I know what it takes to reach out to people and scout them. So I appreciate the interest.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. So me, just starting with mental hygiene, I'll start from there and then, go backwards. Mental hygiene. Why am I so infatuated with mental hygiene over mental health? Mental health is obviously number one, right? When you talk about mental health and therapy and mental illnesses and stress and I was saying diabetes, wow. But yeah, stress and depression and things of that nature. So, but it's such a serious topic. It's such a serious topic. And then in Black and brown communities, mental health and therapy and things like that are frowned upon or really just pushed under the rug. And so we want to eliminate all barriers and challenges for people to start to get the things that they need. So it's calling it something else and make it more hip and more digestible. I think that's the route we should go. So mental hygiene is basically all the small thing. You're breaking mental health down into small chunks and things that are digestible that you can do every day, right? So instead of looking at mental health as, oh, I got to get a therapist. Oh, there's something wrong with me. I need to get a therapist. Mental hygiene says, well, let's do day-to-day things like, exercise. Let's do the day things like, express gratitude. Take time out for yourself, 30 minutes, 30 seconds, even sometimes of breath work. These are all like small little intricate things that we can do on a day-to-day basis that promotes mental health. And we look at it as mental hygiene. So we think about hygiene as in, we brush our teeth, we comb our hair, we wash our face, we make sure we do these things every day, sometimes twice and 3 times a day, right? And that's for our outer self, and for our bodily functions and things like that. But what are we doing for our mental health on a day-to-day basis? So that is where mental hygiene has come from.
I love that. And you don't think of it in that way, just those small things that you can actually do to help yourself each day, like taking a step back and breathing, because we get so engrossed in what we're doing, we don't realize that actually there's some elements of this that we can, like self-care, basically, mental self-care.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think, sometimes people take, once a month, ladies and men alike, go get your nails done and go to the spa and go get your hair done. These things are, right, even though they're once a month. And if you think about it, what are you also doing for you? Some people don't do anything for their mental health once a month. And so but you do things for your physical health every day. So it's like kind of kind of breaking it into a different phrase where we can look at it as the same as we look at brushing our teeth. So I think that's one of the huge things. But looking at it as just something that we can do every day instead of something that's like, oh man, it's such a big, hurdle to get over. And then by the time you know it, you go to a couple yoga classes and then do a couple meditations and do a couple of things that are related to your mental health. And you're like, you know what, maybe I should talk to a therapist. I mean, it's not so bad. So we want to ease people in. And I'm, as a consultant, coming from was as a consultant and a former personal trainer, we always working with people on one-on-one and behavior change. Right. And so one of the age-old monikers is like, it's the frog test, right? It's the boiling the frog test. If you put a frog into boiling hot water, the frog will jump out. Mm-hmm. Right. Put them in a cauldron and you turn it up slowly, it'll sit there and it'll boil. It'll become acclimated to its environment. So, and that's what we want to do with change and breaking the stigma of mental health.
Okay, thank you for that. And that's very important because sadly, especially in the Black community, there's such a huge stigma surrounding mental health and in your words, mental hygiene and just that self-care that we can do because we feel like we need to be on 110 all the time. So there are things that we can do. And one of the things I noticed when I was researching you and looking you up is that you have written a book.
Yeah.
And the book is the Mental Hygiene Workbook. And I noticed in there at the very beginning, you do have a mental hygiene satisfaction checklist. Can you just elaborate a bit on that and tell us what some of the items on the checklist are that we could be doing?
Yeah, so the Mental Hygiene Workbook, it was created it was an expansion to a program which is still going on. It's it's a virtual walk and talk that's on Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m. And all of the prompts that we talk about every day, every Wednesday, 52 prompt book, signifying that every week is a Wednesday that we have these discussions. And so the mental health checklist and the satisfactory checklist are really things like how often do you exercise? Mm-hmm. How's your fitness life? Things about what are your nutrition habits? Are you comfortable with your nutrition habits? Do it create vitality to you throughout the day? How are your sleep habits? These are all like these things that are big contributors to your wellness or your well-being are also looked at as, mental hygiene factors or habits because they all contribute to your. So for a simple fact of, are you exercising, relieving some of that stress? Obviously, that's one of the key factors in mental health is stress. Oh, and so are you exercising? Do you have a consistent exercise regimen? Simple things. Are you going out with friends? Your social wellness. It's sometimes in life where we get secluded or we become hermits, especially if we're working on something, right? If we have goals, and that's okay. Sometimes you have to go into a deep focus. And that's okay. And that's nothing wrong with having periods of time where you go into a deep focus. But I think, checking yourself to say, hey, am I having valuable social interactions with people outside of myself? Because we live in a world with people and we can't get around that. So making sure that those interactions are healthy and progressive is definitely something to check.
Yeah. Yes, and that's something that maybe we don't pay that much attention to. And I think maybe going through that period of time during the pandemic, where so many of us were not able to meet socially and what that possibly could have done to our mental health, not stopping to realize that there are small things that we can do on the mental hygiene side to keep ourselves healthy mentally. And in your book, in chapter 1, it starts with shaping positive sense of self. And then it goes on to successful on purpose, my village, identifying my flow, the fuel for life. So can you take us to that whole shaping positive sense of self, be successful on purpose? And because we know we often talk about it takes a village, right? But then you also talk about identifying my own flow to fuel for life. So can you just take us through those chapters and just expound on them a bit?
Perfect. And shaping positive sense of self. And I won't go through every week and every subtopic because the overall theme speaks to that chapter. And how we do it is each chapter is a month, right? Is comprised of 4 or 5 subtopics, which is 4 or 5 weeks within that month. And so those are to be looked at. That's how we suggest you go through the book. Once a week, you go through it, do a self-reflection, get into the subject matter, really give yourself some in-depth time just to think and write through it, right? So once a week, you go in that book. And so shaping positive sense of self is, I think, and I think I shared this with you before, or on our pre-call, a week ago, a couple weeks ago or so. I think shaping confidence and building confidence in people is one of my main passions and purpose in life. And, helping people, giving people the tools and the perspective and the reframing, not rephrasing, but the reframing tools and strategies and just perspectives is something that I long for and I live for. So when it comes to shaping positive sense of self, I think that's the number one thing. First of all, let's get you looking at you as the great being that you are. And that's on chapter 1. That's why we start with shaping positive sense of self.
Oh, thank you. And sometimes, and so often, I think we don't have that positive perception or picture of ourselves, do we? And it's nice to get that reminder and just the helpful steps in how we do that and accomplish that. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because going through your book and looking at the titles, and it just was like, this is interesting. Because I think there's so many times we think we're doing the right thing. We think that we're on the right track. And then we pick up a book like the Mental Hygiene Workbook and think, maybe not so much. And you have a chapter that says sometimes less is more and inner stillness. And that really got me thinking, because in this day and age, that at times that feels like a foreign concept, right? Less is more in this day and age. And that inner stillness, because we feel like we constantly need to be going after the bag or going after this goal and smashing this goal and reaching for that and having all of these things. And we're always on the go. But in your book, you mentioned that those things are part of the sometimes less is more and the inner stillness. So can you talk to us a bit about those things? Because you also have a chapter that talks about detaching, decluttering, and your priorities. So do you have any suggestions that you can share with us as to how do we achieve that, and how do we get to the less is more part and the inner peace to be able to do some of these other steps?
Yeah, so great question. Those are great chapters too, especially to see them play out, right? Again, we discussed the chapters in the walking group that I spoke about earlier. That's available to anyone. If they, go on the website, you're able to go in, and that's HolSelf Wellness, HolSelfWellness.com. Go on there, you'll be able to join the wellness walk, a virtual walk and talk. It's an hour every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. And so it's fun going through the chapter and seeing it live out and hear other people talk about it. So sometimes less is more is, in America, we just had a mental hygiene day yesterday in the DMV area, which was awesome. And really just hitting on the fact that in America, we are hustle and bustle, just we're addicted to it. We're addicted to it. Taking a step back sometimes almost seems like you're being, a worthless. It's like when you feel, and sometimes you feel that way too, not even just to others, it's just to yourself. You feel like, oh man, today I didn't do anything. And if you didn't do anything today, you feel like you're a failure, Even if you plan that day out, even if you say it in your mind, you still you have to remind yourself, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And so in chapters like Less is More, we talk about like detaching from those things, right? Detaching from the things that harm us, that are not contributing to our lives. And now, when I say things, it could be, the full essence of it, person, place, or thing, that whole noun. It could be an idea as well. So detaching from the ideas, and I know on a couple of our calls and seeing that come out, is like detaching from ideas of things. And so one of the interesting things that came up on the call was detaching from the idea that, my happiness is conditional and is in the future, right? Once, like that whole thing about once I do this, then I'll be happy. Once I achieve this, then I'll be happy. Detaching yourself from that frame of mind and that thought process is huge. And when it came up on the call, we stuck there for a second and we talked about that. Other subtopics in like minimalism, same thing. We all can talk about our physical things and minimizing things. Sometimes less is more. What is that? It makes you more efficient when you take away the things that are around us and say, I'm only focusing on this. If I'm building a house and I only want, and that's why minimalism is so big right now, because it's taking you're getting rid of the distractions and focus on the main things. And therefore you can move more efficiently that way. Same thing with our mindsets, same thing with our environments and our spaces. Like a room. If you got a room, you got so many things around it, you feel like it's just too much going on. You feel like it's too much going on, and that messes with our psyche. So we go through it. We talk about decluttering, decluttering the mind, decluttering your spaces. And they can be even, friend groups. It can be, when I say environment, I'm talking about everything in your environment. So seeing those discussions come out, and then we talk about priorities. And sometimes less is more. The whole theme is building capacity for efficient progress, efficient movement, right? And so when we talk about priorities, how does this land in sometimes less is more? It helps us make decisions, right? If we have our priorities, we had a live recap, and a funny conversation happened between me and one of my partners, and we were talking about, what are your priorities in choosing things, right? Because it helps us identify what our criteria for that choice is. And if we have our priorities in order, we can make clear and sound decisions. So French fries or tater tots, right? You can choose whichever one you want, but if you're identifying a clear priority and choosing it, then it helps you make your decision, and you can live with your decision. So, and if I can even say a salad versus French fries, right? Now, if your priorities is being healthy and getting some leafy greens, the decision is a no-brainer. So you can go and making sure that you're moving well within your values and you feel better about that. So I just love, diving into those things that we don't necessarily talk about every day. And so not only do we talk about them, we give resources, because one of the chapters in the book, we just talk about resources. And so not chapter, but one of the subtopics in the book, we say resources. And that's for you to be able to gather all your resources to help you do these things. There's websites, and like Angie's List, there's people that you can get people to come and help you sort out your closets, declutter. You can talk with life coaches, you can, and life coaches and therapists and all type of things, BetterHelp. What my partner is a therapist, so obviously he's going to give himself as a resource. But yeah, we talk about those things and give you that space within the book to be able to think about, let me list out some resources. And so now you have your own catalog of things that you can go to when you need to focus on these specific areas.
And one of the things I like that you mentioned a little while ago was we've got this checklist that I'll be happy when I achieve this, I'll be happy when, and just finding things that are going on in your life now to be happy about, and not thinking that happiness is this thing in the future that you have to reach for and attain. So to put that together, to think, well, actually that can help with my less is more, in the sense of I don't have to be like this hamster on this wheel all the time, because I'm chasing this, I don't want to say this illusion of happiness, but it's like it's like chasing this illusion of happiness that it's only somewhere in the future. And if we think about it, if we're only going to be happy when we've checked these things off our list, we may actually never be happy, because the reality is, if we were to look back over our lives, I'm sure most of us, at least one thing can say, man, I thought by now I would have.
That's right. And yeah, I agree with you on that.
So if we never get to that thing, does that mean there's an element of happiness that we're never going to attain?
Yeah. So yeah, I think setting yourself up in that way is definitely something that's at some point is going to be a hint of failure at that, because and you don't want to set yourself up in that way. So looking at it as something that you have to attain, and just think about it. If it's a destination, what happens when you get there? You know,
Come back.
right? Like, okay, now I have happiness. What am I gonna do?
Yeah, now
Yeah.
next.
Yeah. So now what? So that's why it's always a journey. That's why wellness is something it's an active thing. When we talk about wellness in the wellness field, it's something that's active. It's ongoing. It's always a pursuit, and that's how I like to describe it. It's a pursuit. And
Pursuit
so,
of happiness.
yeah, it's a pursuit. It is exactly even pursuit of happiness, right? It's always going to be a pursuit, and that's okay, right? Because the fact is, feelings come and go, things, and there's joy within those moments. I think, and if we can, and we rob ourselves of joy, there's even times in the book that drove conversations about, being able to, in that shaping positive sense of self part, right, where it says the core values and vision and things like that, solitude, attachments. So when we talk about that, and we talk about, what are your visions, and being bold and being able to take those steps towards it, when something is going too good for you, right? I think we've all possibly have had it. I know I have, right? When things are just on, I am clicking on all cylinders, Allison. I'm thinking my business is going well. Every email that I send out, people are responding fast. I'm talking about workshops are coming. People are hitting me up. It's just like, it's going well. But then there's like, in your mind, there's a looming thought. When is the other foot going to hit? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know?
It's like, when is it going to dry up? When is it going to be a case of I have to start reaching out to people and they don't respond to me? And you have that whole, if you're anything like me, have that whole auctioneer going off in your head, right? When is it going to dry up? Am I going to get any clients? Am I going to do anything? And you're just constantly doing that to the point where you've now removed yourself from this moment where everything is going amazingly for you, where you were actually having some peace and some happiness, and you put yourself in this heightened state of frenzy because you've jumped from this moment here and started looking at something that may actually never even happen.
Right. Exactly. And I think, and that's where the trouble lies when we talk about that conditional happiness. Like, okay, when I get there, I'll be this. Because now, like I said, we talked about it. Okay, now once you've gotten to there, I'm happy now, I got this. The very next thought is, okay, now I gotta, I'm vigilant now. I'm hyper vigilant. I'm thinking about, okay, when the next thing gonna happen that's gonna be bad. So that's why it's a slippery slope when we do that. And we work on finding gratitude and, exchanging. One of my big quotes for this year was, exchanging expectation for gratitude. Is because a lot of times we put expectations on things and situations that rob us of that joy of being present in the moment. And I think that is one of the hugest things that, I try to identify whenever I'm talking with a client or whenever I'm doing any work is, hey, let's identify the greatness that's in your life right now.
Mm-hmm.
And let's find some joy in these moments, because if we keep on saying, hey, when I get this house, hey, when I move, hey, when I get this job, when that happens, you're going to be doing that again. So if you can find the joy in the moments when you're actually on that journey, all those steps will be a lot more worth it and a lot more, lively and fruitful.
And you saying that, something just came into my head, right? More money, more problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, that once we've achieved these things, we think that once we get it, it's going to be problem free. But once you get that house, if it's, for example, say it's a bigger house, or you've moved from renting to buying a house, now you're responsible. If that roof blows off, that's on you. If your water heater goes, that's on you. Everything concerned with maintaining that house, let's just use that for the example, is now on you. Whereas when you were renting, it's just like, oh, the roof's gone, landlord, water heater, landlord. And so we think that once we get these things, it's just going to be now plain sailing, life's going to be amazing and great. But we don't realize that those things come with their own issues and troubles as well, though, right? So you're never going to actually get away from that, having to be concerned about things. But it's not so, it's taking the biggest concern away from, not the biggest concern, it's taken away from focusing, I should say, on the biggest concern of things going wrong, and being present in this moment where things are going well, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest skills that you can learn is to be present in the moment.
Mm.
Because again, there are things that are going on. There are bills. There are family that are sick. There are friends that you haven't really spoken to. You kind of worried about it. There are relationship issues. There's things that are going on in your life, and that's going to forever be the case. And we have to be able to build up I don't want to say callous, but we want to build a skill to be able to filter through those things and say, yeah, and yet and still I'm here and I'm happy. Yeah, and still I can see the positives of today. And not worry about the stresses of tomorrow in this moment. There's time where we can plan those things out. There's time for you to set your schedule and be able to sit down and filter through those things and process those things. There's a healthy way to do it, but keeping it on your mind and focusing on those things and continuing to lament about the issues and the problems that are going on, and the fantasy of one day being problem free is something that will ultimately land you in a place that you won't like in years to come.
And it makes me think as well, if you're in a place where you're problem free, you're kind of probably a dead. Just saying, because when do you never have something happen? And another thought came to me as you were speaking. It's not waiting for the rain to pass, but learning to dance in the rain.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I think so many times that's what we do, right? We talk about these places that we aspire to and these things we're aspiring to have and achieve, that it's almost like we have that it's raining right now mentality, rather than thinking, you know what, it's raining right now, but look at all the good things that happens in the rain. We actually need the rain. You can't have a rainbow without the rain, right?
That's right.
It's so looking at that.
I'm sorry, you were asking a question? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, just looking at it that way, we just learn to dance in the rain, because guess what? From rain comes growth.
That's right. Every time. And then also it's cleansing, right? It's cleansing in so many ways, but I'll talk about the literal sense. I just was in the car yesterday with my very close friend, and he was like, man, it's raining on the East Coast for about a week and a half almost, right? And he was talking about that, and it was just like, man, when is it gonna go? I was like, man, to be honest with you, it was dirty out here. And that's what I said. I said it was dirty out here. We had all this smoke and smog coming in from the fires and all. I said it was dirty out here. We needed a good cleansing. And so, and just to think about it in that sense, it's just like we really did. Like, the earth needed it,
Because those orange hazy skies and that poor air quality, we needed something to like have a good wash it away. So yeah, you're right. It's cleansing and it moves, it shifts things. And then when the rain's passed and you got that fresh rain smell and things are starting to blossom and bloom, it's just like, oh, this is great. But we needed that rain in order for that to happen. And I think sometimes we are so focused on it's raining, that we don't look at, okay, during this time of rain, what can I be doing? How can I shift a thought pattern? How can I readjust? How can I pivot? Because we have to constantly learn how to pivot if plan A is not going the way you want. We've got to look at, okay, what can I still be doing, rather than just sitting there stuck and focusing on it's raining. Because, going through your book, and I saw the chapter Strength in Vulnerability. Now, I had to chuckle to myself a little bit, because we've so long been, if you're vulnerable, you're weak. And if you show any sign of vulnerability or emotion, that means you're weak. And for the most part, just people think of it as, again, just showing a sign of weakness. But your book says that there's strength in vulnerability. And I think over the years, we've kind of been learning that, where it's just like, you know what? If you're a man, it's actually okay to cry. It's okay to cry. If you're a man, especially a man of color, it's okay to cry. It's okay to see a therapist. It's okay to not have everything bottled up. So How do you suggest that we actually really push past that mindset and realize that actually it actually takes a lot to be vulnerable, if we're really honest? It's not a small thing, is it?
No, I mean, I think it's one of the hardest things to do, and that's why you say strength and vulnerability. But before I get to strength and vulnerability, I wanted to, anybody's maybe watching and saying like, okay, but how do you work on that skill of being able to turn that rain into and turning that perspective, right? Like being able to look at the rain and say, even though you had an outside event planned for today and the rain is coming, and how do you, and this is metaphorically speaking as well, about how do you turn that rain into something that's going to ultimately give you flowers, right? And understand that perspective when it's happening. Meditation is one thing, right? And I think a lot of times people think meditation is and even in strength and vulnerability, I say use I statement. So let me use an I statement. I used to think meditation was you got to sit, you got to clear your mind, you got to be thoughtless. I thought you had to be like, had to think like, you had to be there was some type of prerequisite. I thought there was some type of, just form a way you had to do it. But meditation is just a time of stillness for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Really in time for yourself. And so when I meditate, and how do I get to that, right? When I meditate, just take some time. It could be 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It could be 30 seconds. It could be an hour. If you build up to that long, that'll be amazing, right? But, a 10-minute, 15-minute meditation, and they're like, I can't turn my mind off. We're not trying to turn our mind off. But what we're doing is we're looking at the rain right in the face and saying, you're here. I'm accepting this. Same thing when you're in a meditative state, right? Maybe you're trying to sit down and you're calming down. Maybe there's thoughts passing. Maybe there's a train coming past. Maybe there's a motorcycle revving his engine, flying down the highway. Bring that into your setting. Bring it into your meditation. Smile about it and say, and these are actual things that I had to tell someone when we were meditating afterwards, and I had to let them know like kind of what I did. I said I brought it into my meditation. So when I meditated in this motorcycle was revving past, I smiled because I'm thinking, boy, somebody's excited about having the motorcycle, and it's a beautiful day outside. Like the joy of that person just revving through with their motorcycle made me excited, and like added to my meditation. Same thing with the train. Train is going, so it's people on that train going places. It's people traveling to the DC area. It's people going to work or getting off of work. Somebody, so, and just thinking about that whole thing, thinking about, the blessings that I have and the benefit I have of being in that area. So bringing it into it. So building that strength and building that muscle to be able to filter through things and turn it into a positive and look at the positive. We're not turning it into a positive. It's already there.
Yeah.
We want to see it and uncover it.
That's interesting, because so many times if we're trying to do that and just be still and meditate and focus, we tend to look at those things as an annoyance, as an interruption, as a distraction, rather than bringing it into it to look at that train going off, life is happening because the movement, people are going somewhere. I like that, because I must admit, I would be that person like, oh, Jimmy, no.
Yep. Right. Baby's crying. A baby crying, right? Joy, that's life, So all of those things you kind of you just internalize and just, so now it doesn't bother you, it doesn't detract. It adds to your experience.
I like that.
With the rain now, right? Okay. How it doesn't rain every day. Like it doesn't rain more than it rains. So it's usually a rarity. If you look at the percentage of times it rains during the year, it pales in comparison to when it doesn't. So when we look at the rain, we can look at it as, it's raining today. What does that kind of force you to do? You can dance in the rain, you can enjoy it from the inside, you can listen to the sounds and the soothing sounds, you can get some rainwater and make some fresh water. You can do a lot of things with it and experiences that you can't do when it doesn't rain.
And it's interesting because my mother loves when it rains.
See?
Now, it rains and that's her first sign. Would you like some soup? No, because it's not cold.
Yeah.
And she'll make some soup and she'll sleep. She'll got nothing gives her best sleep is when it rains. She's made herself some soup, and she actually loves when it rains.
Yeah.
And she's got like orchids and plants, and she'll put her buckets out, catch her rainwater to water her plants. So to your point, it's that perspective shift, isn't it? And how you look at that.
Yeah.
Because there's so many benefits you can get from it. And just hit my mum up for some soup when it rains.
Right.
Make some mean soup, different kinds of soup. So,
Yeah.
thank you for elaborating on that. But yeah, but if we could just jump into that,
Strength of vulnerability.
yes, the strength in vulnerability, because especially for men,
yes,
feel like they've got to have this tough exterior all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the first, in that chapter, in that section, the first, subtopic is called I statements.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first step usually to being vulnerable is using an I statement. Because I'll tell you, just listen, I'll give you two examples. Somebody's on a call or I'm talking to, someone and I'm saying, yeah, a lot of men don't really know how to open up. Okay. I don't know how to open up.
Mm.
I struggle with opening up, So these statements are different, right? Because it's like you're saying a lot of people, you're taking that off of you and you're not claiming the issues or the challenges that you struggle with.
Right.
And that's a simple step that we do all the time, right? That we do all the time. Include yourself into it whenever you're speaking. I included that because, even on some of our calls that we have, people will bring something up and they'll just say a lot of people or most people this or, and I'm like, I'm thinking, let's use I statements because you're bringing it up because it applies to you.
Mm.
You bring it up because in some way this applies to you. So shape it in a way that says I.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to think I have trouble with what challenges me. These things are ways that you're showing people how to bring these things forward. So I think that's the first thing to change our language. And then the other one is, I'm sorry, go ahead. You want to?
No, I'm smiling because that's actually one of my pet peeves when I'm on calls or speaking to people, and they say most people or a lot of people, and I'm thinking to myself, the billions of people in this world, do you know most people?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even if they narrow it down to say people in my circle that I know, whatever, but it's that that broad statement of, yeah, well, most people, I don't know most people.
Right.
I may know a lot of people because I've lived here in the US for several years, lived in England, so my network has grown. So I know a fair amount of people, but I don't know most people.
No, you don't know most people. That's awesome. Yeah, you don't know most people. The fact is, you know least people. Right?
Out of this much people, this.
Right.
So I'm glad that you said that because that's something that's been a pet peeve of mine and say, yeah, most people like, no. If it applies to you, then own that, please.
I think. You say, I think this or I feel this way because. And it's okay for you it's okay for that to happen. And that, see, that starts that language, right? You're vulnerable to say, hey, I like this. I feel this way. That starts that vulnerable language and be able to relate to people. People respect you a lot more if you just say, hey, in my opinion, I think I feel this way. I've seen this happen.
Yeah.
Well, most people do this, or I've seen a lot.
Yeah, own your stuff, right? Just own your stuff. And like you said, people will respect you more. And I would respect a person more if they just own their stuff rather than the most people, all people, because you don't know most and all. This world is too big for even for you to know most or all. Own your stuff, and then you can start with that. And I think, and I like how you put that, because if people just own their stuff, that is such a huge step towards their own showing their vulnerability. And I think people misinterpret or abuse the word vulnerability into meaning, oh, what, because I don't cry. There's more to it.
Exactly. I was coming to that. Yep. Yeah, I was coming to that because everybody thinks, or even like I said, I used to think that vulnerability means, oh, I gotta sit here and be mushy with you. I gotta cry with you. To have feelings, that kind of what that meant. I was always, be able to say, hey, look, this is what's going on. I'm strong, stand up, I'm a man, da, da, da. I gotta move on. So I always thought any emotions like that, any vulnerable statements meant like you're being weaker. And
Mm,
I think, understanding now that, it's better for me when I'm honest. It like I get better results in everything when you're honest with yourself and others. Let's just be honest. You get better results. Um,
yes.
if you're looking to date people, being honest. If you're looking to get business deals, being honest and being authentic. That's another thing. So
Mm,
the second part to the strength and vulnerability outside of I statements was perfection. We talked about perfection in there and just how, just our environment. I came up where, I was only man in the house, single mother. I achieved really well, did get to school, went to, got my master. I achieved. And so, but the whole while I'm achieving, I'm kind of like, almost first generation. There was some college, there was nobody that finished. And so everything that I did was, kind of like already kind of like the first type
mm,
thing. And so it kind of built for me, and I'm realizing this through through therapy and through just intuitive conversations and fierce conversations, that I built up a thing of like not being able to say that I'm not okay or ask for help here or because I'm already looked at as, well, you did, you went to school, you did this, you had this type of job, you should be doing this, or the thought of the perception you think people have of you,
yes.
you operate in that. And
Hmm.
so, and that builds a little sentiment of perfectionism. And so in isolation too. So being vulnerable and saying, hey, I'm not perfect. There's strength and vulnerability of saying, like, I'm not going to chase perfection. I don't want to appear that I am perfect. I want to show some mistakes. I want you to know that, things bother me. I want you to know those things because that's where I can continue to be strong. So I don't have to hide those things and it just wear and wear and wear on me.
Mm. I like that. I like that. Thank you so much for expounding on that. And just know that you can be vulnerable and be strong. And I think, when you look at it another way, those people that hide it and don't want to, that's actually more the weakness than taking that strength and that courage to be vulnerable and share that obviously with trusted people. You don't want to just be vulnerable with people that will abuse that. So, and I think that's a very key point with trusted people. But another thing that I just want to switch to is you wrote an article about burnout prevention.
Mm-hmm.
What tips would you give us about burnout prevention, especially because we spoke previously about the less is more and people just always on the go and the hustle and the bustle, and you always have to do that. And so a lot of people suffer burnout like in their jobs because they feel like they must always, especially now when you've got your emails on your phone, when you can't unplug. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the days when you didn't have, in fact, I was working before there were cell phones, right? I know, I don't look it, thank you.
I know that's right. Yep.
I was working before there were cell phones, so I know what it was like to, once you leave that office, you unplug, you detach. You go on your holiday, you unplug, you detach. Nowadays, you don't have that because unless you go to somewhere where there's no cell service and no Wi-Fi, you're always connected, aren't you? So people never have that luxury of being able to really fully disconnect. So, what tips would you give them about prevention burnout?
Yeah. So, well, thank you for asking about that too, and thank you for reading that. I mean, just one thing, and I'll talk about it a little bit in the article, but first, explore the work arrangements that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one. What are the flexible work arrangements that you have? Is it possible for you to take a day at home and work from home? Is it okay for you to change, even if you work in an office, is it okay for you to change the location of your office in that space? Like, can you work on the roof? Is there a rooftop? Is there a flex space available. Just changing the scenery a little bit, right? Just so it won't wear on you so much. Seeking out the resources that your employer has. Are there mental health training and education? Are there, different social events and wellness opportunities for you? When I say social events, I think it's great to ingratiate yourself with people that are working with you, side by side every day. Because the better you form a relationship with them, a working relationship, you don't have to go be buddy with them everywhere. But the more you can know the people you work with, build trust and rapport with them, I think if it builds a better overall experience at work. But some things that, just plain and simple, just quick little tips. Hey, grab your work schedule. Let's plan out some time off. And when I say time off, we're not talking about, hey, you taking time off this to go to a wedding. You taking time off to go to the doctor. You're taking time off to take your kids somewhere. You're taking time off because it's something that you have to do, right? That's not time off though, right? That's time off from work, but that's not time off. When I talk about time off, you're clearing your schedule and you're the only thing on your schedule.
Yeah, sitting down on somebody's beach somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Go to a beach. If that's your idea of taking a load off and just relaxing and replenishing yourself, then do that. Some people say, hey, I want to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. That's going to be a reset and refresh for me. But whatever that thing is for you, I think set that up. Like at the beginning of the year, there's no need. You should have, if you're somebody that goes on trips, you should have your trips, listed out. They don't have to be planned all the way, but say, this quarter I want to go here. This quarter I want to go there. So it's already known. You can plan around it. There's nothing that can get in the way of it. It's there. You don't reschedule. When I used to be a trainer every day, right? This is what I used to tell my clients. I had something on the wall in the studio that said, bosses don't cancel. So if bosses don't cancel. So it's like, if you're a boss and you're in charge of your schedule, then how can you cancel a meeting with yourself?
Right.
Yeah, don't cancel a meeting with yourself. Like, okay, if you're working out, that's a meeting for you. That's for you to do it and improve yourself. Why would you cancel that? At the very minimum, you reschedule. We don't cancel it though.
Yeah, that's true. Rescheduling is allowed. I like that.
Rescheduling is allowed, but we don't cancel meetings with ourselves. Of course not.
I like that. Thank you for those tips, because I think we all need it in this day and age where we feel like we always have to be on the go. So thank you for those tips on burnout prevention. And my last question for you is, okay, you had your mental hygiene day, your first one. Yep. Tell us a little bit, what does that day consist of? Because I'm saying first one because I'm putting it out there that there are going to be more.
There are.
Okay, wonderful. So what did that day consist of and how did it come about?
Thank you for asking about that and giving me the opportunity to speak on that. It's still fresh, so still kind of excited about it and, just doing the whole recaps and feedback and just reaching out to everybody. So it's still very fresh. How did it come about? Me and my business partner, we wrote the mental hygiene workbook, and we've done a lot of education on mental hygiene, done workshops all over. And we just started to think there's a day for everything, there's a day for everything. And then he said, well, we're going to have a mental hygiene day. And when he said we're going to have a mental hygiene day, I'm like, we're going to have a mental hygiene day. And so at that point, we started thinking people have mental health days. They don't take them. So you look at stats and you look up statistics, and 56% of people finished the year last year with PTO on the table. And so when we look at that and we're like, why is that? That's paid time off. I'm confused. And then we look at burnout rates. They're increasing. And then we look at entrepreneurs. All of their rates on anxiety and depression and burnout are up. Why is that? Because they're not given PTO, so they don't look at it as time that they can take off. And then when they do take off, are they really off? They're still answering emails, still sending out things, still promoting, still doing all the things that they normally would do under the veil of vacation.
Yeah.
It's
They're just doing it from a different location, basically.
different location. And those are good. You can do those too. You can work remote. You can change your location. Those things are good, right? But at some point, you do need a hard just stop. And so we said, okay, how are we going to get these Americans to take some time off? Okay, they run by their schedule. Maybe if it's something that we can put on their schedule where we do all the planning for them, right? So we said we're gonna get some health, some mind body involved. And it coincided with International Yoga Day. So we had 2 yoga sessions. We had a meditation session, sound bathing as well. The sound bath was amazing, by the way. Get some healthy food there. We had breakout conversations where we talked about the guilt of taking off, right? Like, is there guilt in taking off?
100%.
The discussions were, I mean, just so profound. One lady told me that it's not a guilt about taking off, it's the anxiety about coming back. And I'm like, wow.
You know what? As you say that, though, because I remember we used to say, in order to take time off, you've got to do like 3 weeks of work ahead of time. And then when you come back, all that catching up that you have to do was almost like you didn't take any time off. And I think, so you saying that, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah. And that's the thought. But, and you know, my retort to that is, hey, Allison, it's work. It's always going to be work. So no matter what day you go in, there's going to be work. So it's like, if you can go in 6 days a week, you can go in 2 days a week, you can go in 12 days a week, if there was such thing. It's still going to be work there when you get there. So that's what I tell people, you know, and trust me, I've worked in corporate, I've worked, you know, contracted for the government. I've done some different things in my day in sales, you know, commission on. I've done a lot of different things. So I can understand the hesitation in taking that time off. But that's the one thing I would say is we plan it, you come, you enjoy yourself. So we had different conversations on that. Then we had breakout groups on breakout discussions on, hey, is therapy for me? You know, and we had a therapist there leading that breakout. And what came out of that is, hey, it's not for everybody at this moment. I think, you know, it's not for everybody at this moment because they think mental health means you have to get a therapist. And so having conversations that let you know that it's okay and it's not something that's, you know, that people are saying like, you got to get it. We're not forcing you into it. And so, and then the other conversation in the breakout that I thought was really telling was, you know, taking the first step to taking control of your life, taking the first step to make any movement, right? And that was led by a young lady, a business owner that owned the venue that we were in.
Okay.
So it was just awesome, and then we fed everybody some healthy foods from some of our vendors. So it was just a great day. It was from 9 to 2. People were so excited. We had our sponsors gave everybody free gifts, and so I'm a Lululemon ambassador, and so my connection with Lululemon afforded, you know, some great gifts, some yoga mats for them. Everybody that came. So it was just a really good event. And I'm looking to have another one in the DC area. The next one will be in Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay. And we are looking at, this is just a little bit, don't hold me to it, but we're looking at doing one a quarter.
This is recorded.
Yeah. All right. So we're looking at doing one a quarter. So.
Okay. This sounds good. So please do keep me posted. Let me know because I would love to attend one should my schedule allow. But yeah, absolutely would love to do that. Thank you so much. And something you said earlier, just before we go, when we were talking about burnout prevention and seeing if you can move your workstation, work from a different location, an expression that I grew up with in the UK was a change is as good as a rest. And sometimes just changing that location, it just like reinvigorates you. So thank you for reminding me of that. So what's next for you? What do you got in the pipeline? I know you've got a book. You have mentioned about your mental hygiene days. So is there anything else coming up for you that you'd like our listeners to hear and know?
Yeah. So got some things that they can tune into. So yeah, got some things down in UNC Chapel Hill. Going to be working with UNC Chapel Hill on some leadership development conferences. So excited about that. I'm going to be speaking at the National Wellness Institute National Wellness Conference coming up in July 19th in Cincinnati, Ohio. Looking forward to that. And if you're in the DMV area, I'm going to be participating in it's called a fit crawl. And there's going to be, some participating gyms and yoga studios, which is going to be really fun. You go from place to place and experience their gyms in truncated versions, but you get to experience them. So it's going to be a good day. So I'll be participating in that. So yeah, it's just a full list of things, activities. I can't wait for it. If you play golf, I'm a golfer. I am connecting with St. James, which is a sporting complex, and doing a golf tournament in September. So all of those things you can look at those on my link at LaBarronBurwell.com, and we can get connected.
That was my next question. Where can people find you? The next 30 seconds, where can people find you?
Okay. People can find me on LaBarronBurwell.com. All of my links are there. I do a lot of work on LinkedIn and Instagram. Those are my big two social media platforms. But again, if you go to LaBarronBurwell.com, everything will be there of how to get in touch with me and all of the services that I provide.
And I will put the links to all of those in the description. So, LaBarron Burwell, thank you so much for joining us here on Conversations with Alison J, the journey to here. Very informative and hygienic is the word I think I should be using. Hygienic conversation. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
No problem. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me. You've been a gracious host, and best of luck with everything too. We didn't get into what you got going on, but the world knows.
Yes, they do. And everything is on my website. I've got 2 books out. I'm writing another. There's a few things going on in the pipeline. So watch this space. There's more to come from me.
Yes, and I look to collaborate with you soon as well.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much, my dear. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.